Love and work, work and love, that's all there is. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. If youth knew, if age could. I have found little that is good about human beings on the whole. In my experience, most of them are trash, no matter whether they publicly subscribe to this or that ethical doctrine or to none at all. That is something that you cannot say aloud, or perhaps even think. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. The goal of all life is death. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is, what does a woman want? Civilization began the first time an angry person cast a word instead of a rock. A civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. If a man has been his mother's undisputed darling, he retains throughout life the triumphant feeling, the confidence in success, which not seldom brings actual success along with it. The ego is not master in its own house. The mind is like an iceberg, it floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips, betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. The conscious mind may be compared to a fountain playing in the sun and falling back into the great subterranean pool of subconscious from which it rises. Flowers are restful to look at. They have neither emotions nor conflicts. The first human who hurled an insult instead of a stone was the founder of civilization. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. A man should not strive to eliminate his complexes but to get into accord with them. They are legitimately what directs his conduct in the world. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. If you can't do it, give up. What we call happiness in the strictest sense comes from the preferably sudden satisfaction of needs which have been dammed up to a high degree. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other and to a greater or lesser extent. Dreams are often most profound when they seem the most crazy. One is very crazy when in love. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. A man who has been the indisputable favorite of his mother keeps for life the feeling of a conqueror. Men are more moral than they think and far more immoral than they can imagine. What a distressing contrast there is between the radiant intelligence of the child and the feeble mentality of the average adult. Just as no one can be forced into belief, so no one can be forced into unbelief. What progress we are making! In the Middle Ages they would have burned me. Now they are content with burning my books. The act of birth is the first experience of anxiety, and thus the source and prototype of the affect of anxiety. America is the most grandiose experiment the world has seen, but, I am afraid, it is not going to be a success. Men are strong so long as they represent a strong idea. They become powerless when they oppose it. Illusions commend themselves to us because they save us pain and allow us to enjoy pleasure instead. We must therefore accept it without complaint when they sometimes collide with a bit of reality against which they are dashed to pieces. The tendency to aggression is an innate, independent, instinctual disposition in man. It constitutes the powerful obstacle to culture. The first requisite of civilization is that of justice. The psychoanalysis of neurotics has taught us to recognize the intimate connection between wetting the bed and the character trait of ambition. Everywhere I go I find that a poet has been there before me. Man has, as it were, become a kind of prosthetic god. When he puts on all his auxiliary organs, he is truly magnificent, but those organs have not grown on him and they still give him much trouble at times. Religion is an illusion and it derives its strength from the fact that it falls in with our instinctual desires. The goal towards which the pleasure principle impels us, of becoming happy, is not attainable, yet we may not, nay, cannot, give up the efforts to come nearer to realization of it by some means or other. America is a mistake, a giant mistake. Where it was, there ego shall be. The liberty of the individual is no gift of civilization. It was greatest before there was any civilization. The doctor should be opaque to his patients and, like a mirror, should show them nothing but what is shown to him. Anatomy is destiny. Civilized society is perpetually menaced with disintegration through this primary hostility of men towards one another. It is impossible to overlook the extent to which civilization is built upon a renunciation of instinct. Analogies, it is true, decide nothing, but they can make one feel more at home. Children are completely egoistic, they feel their needs intensely and strive ruthlessly to satisfy them. A certain degree of neurosis is of inestimable value as a drive, especially to a psychologist. Just as a cautious businessman avoids investing all his capital in one concern, so wisdom would probably admonish us also not to anticipate all our happiness from one quarter alone. Yes, America is gigantic, but a gigantic mistake. Obviously one must hold oneself responsible for the evil impulses of one's dreams. In what other way can one deal with them? Unless the content of the dream rightly understood is inspired by alien spirits, it is part of my own being. Like the physical, the psychical is not necessarily in reality what it appears to us to be.